Okay, years later, after being in my chosen profession, I received my master's degree and working very casually on the doctorate dissertation and so on. I was informed by a phone call one day that if I got my doctorate dissertation in by a certain date, I could probably have graduation that June with a PhD. And a very good accredited university that I received my PhD from.
Okay, okay. Great. So what made you decide to get into the financial services field rather than another profession? Tell us about that.
Like most people, they maybe think know what they want to do when they finish college, but
Mhm.
very often they don't. And very often after whatever occupation or profession they enter, they usually change once or twice after that anyway. One of the characteristics I had, which was decided upon in my last year of college, was I wanted to be in a profession where I was limited only by my ideas and abilities, not having to depend on somebody to retire from in order to make the next step up.
I see.
So as a result, but I wanted to be sure there would not be a commission salesman. Of course, that's exactly where I ended up. But I was so successful, it didn't make any difference. I was probably one of the most successful people that Dean Witter hired since World War II.
So you were a broker at first?
I was a broker in Dean Witter Long Beach office, and
Mhm.
I was number 4 in the nation in new accounts the first year out of college.
Wow.
So I guess I worked hard
Mhm.
and did very, very well. And at the end of 3 years, I had 782 clients, which is unheard of. And they said, think of what he could do in our number 1 office in Beverly Hills. So I went to Beverly Hills office and became very successful there. That is the best decision I made during that period of time
Okay.
because I met the right people there.
Mhm.
I mean, people like Walter Heller, who's Kennedy's economic advisor, lunch with him many times. Other people, that was very influential in my life.
Well, you've been handling investments for a really long time. What strategies do you think are timeless?
It seems like 100 years, but I guess it's not quite that long.
Not quite
It's
that long.
only about 50 years.
That's a long time though.
When you work 10 hours a day and basically to do all the things you need to do, study, analyze charts, and go through all the gymnastics, it becomes a 50, 60-hour week to accomplish everything.
Sure. So what strategies do you think are timeless for investments? What do you
Well,
think that would be?
my view of the world is very different than most people, and they probably don't agree with me, but the fact of the matter is, I'm one of these people that have strange ideas, like if you're in a house that's on fire, it's a good idea to leave.
Right.
Nobody else does that. They don't believe in it. As a result, I don't believe in owning stocks to a high degree in bear markets. You can own a few stocks that you think are safe, but you basically have to get out of the market. You cannot stay fully invested when the stock market goes down 30, 40, 50% value. And most people don't get out. They just stay fully invested all the time.
So for the sake of your grandchildren who might not know what the difference between a bear and bull market is, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Bull market is basically where the major trend is of the stock prices are up.
Mhm.
Bear markets are where the primary trend is down. And I was up in Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago telling my nephew, you only need to really know 2 symbols.
Mhm.
If the market's a bull market, you own SSO, and if it's a bear market, you own SDS, and you'll make money every time.
Okay. So tell us what those initials mean.
Well, there's Standard & Poor's 500 index.
Okay.
It accounts for 90% of the market value of all securities listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And SSO is the Standard & Poor's 500 only times 2, so it's amplified.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so tell us about your reputation in the investment world. How widespread is that?
It's really hard to say. What happened is, because I'm a workaholic, that's very driven in my profession, I usually worked on Saturday mornings, and most people don't. And when people would come in from Europe, see people all week long, but they could never see anybody on Saturday because they're not working, they're not at the office.
But you would work all week.
I would
and
work all week and be
Saturdays.
in Saturday morning and
Okay.
be at the office. So they'd come down, these people from Amsterdam and Zurich and places like that would come down to interview me on Saturday
Okay.
and track how we're doing and what investments we're making. As a result, along about 1986 or so, the firm was recommended worldwide to the clients of a investment newsletter writer, Harry Schultz, Dr. Harry Schultz of Amsterdam. He himself was an interesting character because he had 3 different cities in which he lived, and he really wasn't necessarily a citizen of anything. But as a result, one day in the mail we got 106 letters from all over the world, including the Bank of Hong Kong, and
Wow.
inquiring about our firm,
Okay.
and it was addressed to Department B. Well, there was only 2 people in the firm, myself and my daughter Kathy. So I said, I'm Department A, so you have to be Department B. You get to open all this mail. And this resulted in our obtaining accounts with the Bank of Hong Kong, Alaska Insurance Company, and very distant places. So the reputation was getting out there. Then later years, when we had a number of articles written or interviews of me in the Wall Street Transcript, some of which were 2 newspaper pages long interviews, the word got out pretty well.
So after you were a broker with Dean Witter, did you go right from there to starting your own firm?
No, I started. I made a step in between. I was going to buy a seat on the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange for $60,000 at that time, because 80% of the stocks trading on the New York Stock Exchange are also traded on the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange.
So when was this?
This was in 1968.
Okay.
And so I met a friend who had, from my firm that I was with, just went through the exercise of 6 months to make that happen. And I joined him with a 20% equity ownership in this firm in downtown Los Angeles. We had 2 people working on the floor of the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange trading for us, and we made a market 40 over-the-counter stocks. So you might say at age 37, I pretty much done it all.
Right. So
I was executive vice president of the firm.
Okay.
And the bear market came along. Nixon was elected president November 7th, I believe it was, 1968. The stock market topped out December 1st, and the rest was history. It went to hell from there for 18 consecutive months.
Okay.
Because I have a methodology to determine when the market's going to roll over into a bear market or start a new bull market, the red flags were flying to get out of the stock market 2 weeks from the top, which is pretty typical of our technical methodology. So I got out of the stock market, off margin, out of the stock market, and saved my capital, which allowed me then to retire into letting my license expire as a stockbroker,
Okay.
and decided to give the freeway back to the Indians. I went up and down that long enough. 1970, the bottom of the market was May 26, 1970, and went down to the largest law firm in the county, Ratana Tucker, on June 15th, incorporated. He tried to talk me out of it, by the way, because firms were going bankrupt right and left. I said, that's when you start a business. I knew the story of Troy Posta in Texas, who during the Depression, he was 29 years old in 1930, and he couldn't get a job anywhere, so he started an insurance company. And tremendously successful. That's the time to start, is at the bottom.
Sure.
And as a result, we were up, our clients were up 180%, 180% the first 18 months of business.
So that's when you started your business?
Started their own company.
In 1970?
Right, it's called
Okay.
Engebretson and Company Incorporated, because we didn't know what to name it, so we just took that as temporary.
Right.
It was years later before we changed it to Engebretson Capital, which is more descriptive of what we do.
And now it's ECM.
No, we shortened it down. I mean, if IBM can be IBM, why
Right.
can't we be ECM? It's a lot
Right.
easier to spell.
Okay, so let's see. How have you managed to earn and save so much? Because we know you've been very successful financially.
We've been more enormously successful. We moved from the city of Orange down to Newport Beach in August of '96. At that time, we were managing about $90 million. 3 years later, we were managing $530 million as the reputation got out of one world. So we had a
Wow.
cash flow of $5 million a year in fee income alone. My salaries were running $2 to $3 million a year.
Wow.
And I learned from my clients about defined benefit trusts and this sort of thing. So
Okay.
be able to sock away maybe $200,000 a year, tax deferred. Someday you'll pay taxes on it, which now I have to deal with at this time. But it's tax deferred, and when you can put $200,000 a year away and the government's not taking a piece of it every year,
Sure.
the assets can compound.
Oh, sure. Well, what do you see for UCM's future?
I think it's a tremendously bright future for the company because we have an awesome performance record to share with the public.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also really working now to set up the next generation.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be really neat if we could, rather than, if we could have the next generation own the future accounts rather than this company. Because the more assets I build and the more valuable I make this Engebretson Capital ECM, the more estate taxes are going to hit at 55% tax rate.
Right.
So why not put that into the next generation by having a new corporation? So it'd be kind of neat if we use my performance record,
Mm-hmm.
which we can use, it's transportable as long as they have the same people involved under the federal laws. Our performance record, which is pretty awesome, and the depth of experience of almost 50 years that I have, people know about, and utilize all of that, plus the office space. We already have the quote equipment, the $2,000 a month for Bloomberg machines, all the computer systems in place, and you know what? Benefit the next generation.
Right.
Build up the assets there.
So you've had most of your children work for you, or all of them at some point? Is that right?
I think Jim brags about
Okay.
being the only one that didn't work for me.
Okay. Well, talk about your kids a little bit. Maybe this is a good time for that. You have 7.
We have pictures and brochures from way back when, and Kathy and Linda both worked there at the same time.
Okay. So of your 7 kids, then Kathy and Linda worked at the same time.
Yeah, Sharon might have been there a very short period of time, but
Okay.
not very long. David didn't stay long either. He was
Okay.
there for a matter of very short period of time.
Okay. And John.
John's been there about 15 years now.
Wow.
John's just great. He's a great guy, and
Mm-hmm.
Joe's been a fantastic person and great addition to the firm. Now he's back with us a year ago. He's made our clients a lot of money because of his intelligence, hard work.
Well, while accumulating your wealth, how did you manage balancing work and family? Because that can be pretty tricky. I mean, you have 7 kids, so that's quite a bit. I know you had a fantastic wife. I was very fond of her myself. So.
It was, I think, very awesome because we decided that if I had to work full-time, 12 hours a day or whatever it took,
Right.
that would free up her time to be full-time mother.
Mm-hmm.
Her goal in life was to have 7 children and raise them well, very religious and so forth, and did. And she protected me to be free to do the things I need to do. There were many, many times when I gave a seminar at Dean Witter office in Wilshire Boulevard, Beverly Hills, and I'd finish up maybe at 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Well, it didn't pay to drive an hour home and an hour back in the morning, so I just stay with a friend overnight or something that lived near the office.
Okay.
Otherwise, you get home and start over at 5:30 next morning, see the same taillights you saw yesterday going up the ramp.
Well, I know Joe has memories of those Saturdays at the office. I've heard about those a few times. So, you think you instilled those in more? I know. Well, you could talk about Joe. How, since he was so much younger than your other kids, you think that's why he grew up with that so much in his blood, or?
I think there's a lot to be said for that. As I recall, when Joe was like 18 months old, he thought he was a teenager and had to compete with the other ones. He had about a 50-word vocabulary when he was 12 months old or such. He was just, and I remember sitting in a high chair and he was trying to keep up with the teenagers because he thought, he should do what they know what they do and do what they do.
Right.
So it worked out very well. But I was very blessed because come Saturday morning, when we lived in Anaheim, we had a rotary lawnmower for the front and another big lawnmower for the back, and the back was 100 and some feet across and very, very deep yard, a huge yard with orange tree. And Joe would just take the front and John would take, and I would take the back, and we would get it done very rapidly. He was always my sidekick.
Yeah.
So he started learning about the business probably at the age of 7 at the kitchen table.
Oh, okay.
By the time he was 14 years old, he was in the office talking to the treasurer of Westinghouse Electric Company and asking the right questions, and they didn't know he was 14.